Center for Biosecurity, and we're happy to have with us this morning for sure as we take a look at climate change and sustainable development, a webinar upcoming, Miss Heather Pinnock. She's the Managing Director of Lucia Caribbean. Is she with us so far? And we also met with the Director of the Center for Biosecurity Studies at UWI, Dr. Kirk Douglas. To both of you, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Pearson.
Thank you for joining us today. It's a very big subject and very important topic that you're looking at and the upcoming webinar. I'll start with you, Dr. Douglas. Talk to us about when it is and why it is that you're having this webinar.
Okay, good morning to all Barbadians. It's going to be on Wednesday, which is the 26th of February at 1 p.m. Barbados time. We are hoping that we will have a lot of persons turning up to listen to the experts speak on sustainability, speak on climate change, air pollution, but air pollution indoors. What are some of the bad things that you can do inadvertently to make your space not so healthy? And what are some of the things that you can do to make your space healthy, whether this is your home, your work, your building, even for architects. We'll have an architect, Mr. Ryan Clark. He is a lead and well-certified architect, and he'll be giving us some really good pointers on how to build and how to build sustainably. So this all ties into sustainable development as well. We also have Mr. Christopher Galarzo. He is the co-founder of EcoChef, and I really would like people to tune in to hear what Chris has to say, especially for the tourism industry and the hospitality industry, on how we can make kitchens much more sustainable, whether they're commercial, residential, or otherwise. We also have Miss Heather Pinnock, and she is a real estate agent, a placemaker, and managing director of Lucia Caribbean. And she's joining me this morning to give you a bit more background on herself and her participation as well. And we also have Miss Grace Williams. She's the owner of Grace in Design Services. So how interior designers can also get in on this really interesting topic on how we can make our spaces safer. So thanks very much, Pearson.
We're seeing a difference, Dr. Douglas, in how we construct buildings today. In time of yore, we would have gone a lot into wooden and lots of open windows and louvers that remained open. Now we have everything all closed with air conditioning. And I suppose that this webinar upcoming helps us to take a closer look at when we build and develop today, how we are impacting through the changes in climate as well, the safety and well-being of our people who occupy those spaces.
Most definitely. So whether you're a tenant, you're a homeowner, a real estate agent, professional, architect, a chef, interior design, urban planner, sustainable advocate, hospitality leader, or someone who's just passionate about the future of our planet, then this is the webinar for you to tune in and to learn and even ask your questions, because we'll have a question and answer after there are presentations from the panelists. And I really want Barbadians and all persons across the Caribbean, because we have the opportunity to listen to professionals give us a Caribbean context, because we know that overseas in the US, in the UK, in Europe, they're the standards, and they will speak to that, especially the well and the lead in terms of how do you construct buildings that are energy efficient. So even as Barbados marches on to 2030 and the Barbados National Energy Policy and how we are going to be looking to be carbon neutral, this is a very pivotal webinar to help us to guide in terms of how we can build sustainably as well. But I believe Ms. Pinnock, she has a lot more information regarding spaces, so not only the indoor spaces, but how we design our outdoor spaces in terms of recreation, which is really important as well. So I'd like her to give us.
Dr. Douglas, I'll get to her. Trust me.
Okay,
trust
no
me.
problem.
I'm pacing this in a particular way because I want people to get it, and so when they get to understand that by the way we construct, it impacts the way people experience that lived space. And so we have to be very mindful, particularly in the Caribbean, with a lot of the humidity that we experience, how we position our buildings, how we construct them with enough ventilation so that we don't find ourselves having the problems that we're facing today. And it seems to be having a lot in a lot of industrial spaces in particular. And so, Lucia Caribbean, this is your lived experience. This is something you do every day. Talk to us a little bit about what your company offers as it relates to sustainable development and how climate change is impacting, generally from your observation, the spaces in which we live and work.
Great. I'm so happy to be here. Good morning from Jamaica. Yes, indeed. What I do every day and what I'm thrilled to do every day is look at how our built environment is affecting sustainable development. And, you know, the Secretary General of the UN was in Barbados just a few days ago, and he was speaking about really the issues around climate change, around sustainable development. He spoke of a 3-point plan. One was climate change and one was sustainable development. So this is very topical, it's very important. And in the Caribbean, we bear the brunt of the effects of climate change when we produce collectively less than 1% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. But we do feel the effects of hurricane season, more intense storms. We feel the effect of droughts. We feel the effect of heat stress. All of these things are things we feel. And then the built environment or built sector is really what houses our lives. So what I do every day is look at the places where we live, work, and play. And that means I want to understand and help people understand how they can improve how climate change is affecting them in the places that they live, work, and play. As Dr. Douglas said, we'll get into a lot more detail on Wednesday about architecture and architectural details, about, you know, what kind of spaces to invest in and to focus in, and how we look at design and all of those things. But really what I want to highlight is how broad this topic is and how it applies to everybody in every space where we live, work, and play. Because here in the Caribbean, our lives are very much impacted by climate change. So we need to consider that in all of what we do in terms of design and the spaces we occupy.
Whether you're a large company or just a tenant in a small dwelling property, it impacts you. And so this webinar is for everyone. Don't see it to be just for those at the top end. It's really, I suppose, for everyone because we all, each of us, go into different spaces, whether we stay there for longer periods or shorter periods. We all use those spaces. Dr. Douglas, though, Ms. Pinnock did talk about outdoor spaces as well. Is that a concern?
Of course it is. So. Oh, which one of us?
Dr. Douglas.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Of course it is. A lot of Caribbean life takes place outdoor. It's one of the things that I really focus on quite a bit, which is public space. A lot of what we do in the Caribbean, from on our sidewalks, in the streets, to let's take Barbadian road tennis, to carnivals, to our celebrations. We live a lot of our life outdoors. So it's important that we give quite a bit of thought also to what that space is like. Today in Jamaica, my phone is giving me an alarm. The sun's not up yet, but it says there'll be an extreme UV today. So these are things we need to be aware of just as we go about life every day. Over to you, Dr. Douglas.
No problem. Thanks, Heather. What I'd like to highlight, particularly as it relates to climate change, notably, Kingston has gone through what is called climate departure within the language of climate change. That means that what was previously the norm has now shifted. So in terms of temperature, in terms of UV exposure, that has now shifted to higher temperatures, as we would have also experienced in Barbados. It's just that Jamaica has now entered a new realm where their new norm is much higher as it relates to temperature. And this has a lot of knock-on effects as it relates to health, whether this is in relation to non-communicable diseases, persons with kidney disease, persons with cardiovascular disease. And so we have to be mindful of the shift in the environment and how we can adapt to climate change in ways that also allow us to develop our economies, develop our countries sustainably. So that is part of, because this webinar is part of our climate change and Sustainable Development Series. It's the fourth one that we've had. So we've had others before, but this one is really, really interesting. And I think we had a webinar before that focused on the actual architecture and buildings and how we can build better. But this one takes it a bit further. We're looking at even how your furnishings, for instance, your curtains, your soft furnishings, your chairs, your tables, your furniture, how they all influence your indoor air quality. And therefore, you have to be mindful of what items you furnish with, particularly in buildings, in terms of offices and stuff, especially Mr. Rand Clark. He will give us a lot more detail where that is concerned. And I know that persons want to do better, and we are providing the opportunity to get the information that persons can definitely advance the sustainable development thrust within the Caribbean, not only in Barbados, but all through the OECS, all the way in Jamaica. We have two Jamaicans who will be presenting, both Miss Williams and Miss Pinnock. And I believe that also especially for the tourism industry, how they can pivot and also save money as it relates to their kitchens. Because when you think of it, the hotter your kitchen is, the harder your air conditioning has to work. And so Chris will go through a number of steps to show persons in hospitality industry in terms of the cooking and preparation of food. And he is a chef, a certified chef. Actually, he's the world's very first sustainable eco chef. So we have really, really, really highly skilled individuals who will be participating in this webinar. And I want persons to come out. Don't think of it as something onerous, because they'll not be presenting things that will be over your head. They will take you through simplistically and step by step how you can manage, how you can even scan your environment, and therefore help you to live better and live safer.
And that is so important, how you can help us to do so. And it's not just the pretty little things, I have the vase here with me and all of these soft, cushy cushions, but they can themselves be harbingers for different things I need to be mindful of. And so the things that we identify immediately, Ms. Pinnock, will be the mold. We talk about heat and we know what that causes as well, but there are other things. It's not all the pretty things that necessarily need to be in the space to make it safer. And so I'm glad that the webinar is on. It's this coming Wednesday, 1 o'clock, and it is online.
It's online. So there's a Zoom link. On the graphic there, you can see a QR code. That QR code will take you to the Zoom registration. Once you register, you will be issued your registration link, and you can join us at 1 p.m. Barbados time, which is 12 noon Jamaican time. But I really want persons to understand what are the threats within your environment. You can even take a look at your inner bathroom, the bath curtain that you purchased. As soon as you open that, there's a scent that hits you really strong. And that is part of what we mean by what you bring into your environment can influence you, because some people get headaches, some people may even trigger their asthma, but those are what you call volatile organic chemicals, or VOCs. And these are rather silent harbingers against our health, and we have to be mindful of them. And this is because research is advancing in these areas, and people are now becoming more familiar, more knowledgeable. And so as you gain that knowledge, then we have to assimilate that knowledge and then put it into action.
And that's what this webinar is all about, furthering that knowledge, that information that empowers you. Now you know better to do better. So I want to thank both of you. I hope many people do log on and register soon to be a part of this. It's the upcoming webinar, and it's online on Zoom. Remember, check the QR code, and that QR code takes you to a registration form. Thank you, Dr. Douglas. Thank you, Ms. Pinnock, as well, for joining us this morning, and much success with this. I hope really a lot of people do turn up so that they can share the information thereafter with many more. Thank you.
Yeah. And
thank you.
You're welcome.
Very much for your person. And if persons can't log in because sometimes they can't for one reason or the other, we will have a recording which we will try to make available for persons so that they can log on to, I think, YouTube and take a look at it at their convenience as well.
Excellent. Thank you both. Morning Barbados takes a break.